All right, here's my question for you. Since you are now, I mean, I've only recently left New York, but I've said many times, all my friends are liberals and Democrats. But I would say if you're far left, you're probably not attracted to me as a friend, because I'm a little bit more right. That's fine. But I would imagine you're pretty much immersed in left and far left in New York and working at the Times. And so I have to ask you to reassure me. Is the left going to come along with that plan? Like, are they going to reject, the COVID, forgive the term, fear porn, and just, do they want to get back to normal? Because to me, it seems almost impossible to like pull them on that tug of war, like come over a little bit more toward this middle place that looks closer to 2020 pre-March.
I don't know. I really don't know. I think we live in an extremely polarized society. We live in a society with widespread distrust of institutions. I mean, you look at the polling on what people think about the government and the media and organized religion and big business and labor unions. It's all tanked over the last 40 or 50 years, right? And the left likes to emphasize one part of those statistics and the right likes to emphasize another. But it's basically all gone way down, or almost all. People still have a high degree of trust in the military. And so in a society that's highly polarized, with large levels of distrust, I think you can basically have lots of irrationality persist for large periods of time. And I think the most harmful version of it has been on the right. We've got huge numbers of people refusing to take the vaccines and causing a lot of unnecessary death and also prolonging the pandemic for everybody else. And on the left, you've got a lot of people who really are having a hard time looking at the numbers in a sober way and understanding that for large numbers of people, the risks are extremely low. Not for everyone, but for large numbers of people, the risks are still extremely low. And that a whole bunch of these precautions have costs to our society and to our kids. The one thing that I wonder about, and I know conservatives are very eager to predict this, but I do wonder whether there's a point at which Democrats are going to start to worry that there are political costs for them. There is, to me, an intriguing argument that part of the reason that Democrats did so surprisingly poorly, not only in Virginia, but also in New Jersey, is people's anger about schools in particular and the way in which normality has not returned in general. Mm-hmm. And I think if there starts to be kind of electoral panic among people on the left, I do think that could potentially cause a different dynamic in this area.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of, I know you think the right is mostly to blame for the, less than perfect vaccination rates. I look back and I think the whole thing was politicized from the start. The press and the left saw a chance to hurt Trump with COVID. That he was rolling along to re-election because the economy was booming. Most of the polls had him sailing through to a second term, and this was a chance to hurt him. And it was, I think, used in a way by plenty of Democrats and press to try to get to him, and certainly by Joe Biden. And then you had people like Biden, like Andrew Cuomo, like Harris, undermining faith in the vaccines, which were developed under Trump. So I don't think all the vaccine hesitancy can be put at the feet of those Republicans who kind of held on to the messaging that Biden and Harris and Cuomo were delivering early on. They were skeptical then and they remain skeptical. I don't know if they were actually skeptical or not, to tell you the truth, but they certainly said publicly they were when Trump was the president. So to me, it's like, it goes back to your first point, which is the systems are falling apart because they're losing the faith of the American people. And when I look at like the vaccine hesitant, I look at people who no longer trust the mainstream media, people who thought Mike Pence was going to give Trump the presidency on January 6th, people who still think it's coming Trump's way. Why do they think that? They're getting information from unreliable sources. Why are they going there? Well, because they no longer have faith in the mainstream media. Some no longer have faith even on the right in Fox News, right? Because it didn't declare Trump the winner. Like all of it is a never ending cycle downward. To me, it's like a bigger question of how do we pull ourselves out from the depths of that despair on so many fronts, right? Not just like going to Republicans and saying, take the vaccine, or for that matter, Black Americans who have been more vaccine hesitant and so on. So I don't know how we solve that, but I do think it's unfair to just sort of say the Republicans have been too reticent on vaccines because it's a long and complicated story.
It is a long and complicated story, and I certainly wouldn't say all the blame is on one side. I guess my general view is people are responsible for their own actions. And, there are people on the left today who say, well, the reason I insist on wearing a mask even more than the data may support is that people on the right were so anti-mask that it pushed me into this. And my attitude is, no, you're responsible for your own actions. If you're wearing masks in situations where you don't even need them, that's on you. And to me, the flip side of that is, if you look around, yeah, maybe it was a little complicated at first, but Trump never fully embraced the vaccines. And if you look around today, basically you have one Democratic politician after another saying, please take the vaccines, please take the vaccines. And then among Republican politicians, you kind of have this, they're trying to play cutesy. They won't always admit that they've taken it personally. They raise lots of, I'm just asking questions about it.